Welcome to the Weaving Magick Podcast,
where we discuss the different ways to weave magic throughout your daily life.
We are your hosts, Alyssa Lilly
and Tara Webb,
and we are thrilled to guide you in this magical journey of exploration and ritual. Welcome to the Weaving Magick Podcast. I'm your host, Alyssa Lilly.
And I'm Tara Webb.
And today we are joined by a beautiful, magical friend of mine named Sarah. Thank you so much for joining us here on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited and honored to be here.
And we always ask all of our guests this question, and I'm excited to hear your answer to this. How do you weave magic into your daily life?
I love this question because it's so important. It's so easy for us to get caught up in the everyday things, the 3D world, and sometimes forget or disconnect from that magic. So it really does take intention to anchor that in. And for me, my favorite way lately is that I've been starting every morning, getting in my bare feet and just walking on the earth and greeting the land and So I greet the earth, I greet the sky, I greet the divine, and I greet the benevolent ancestors of the land and my own benevolent ancestors and my spirit team. And I just connect by walking and feeling that presence and magic all around me that may otherwise go unnoticed or unappreciated.
That's beautiful. I'm curious, what do you do when it's really cold outside? Do you still connect with the earth in that way?
It's funny because my initial reaction is like, no, but my soul is like, yeah, you're going to bundle up and you're going to get your bare feet on. Come on, girl. So I've definitely been like one to wrap a couple, like grab myself in a blanket and just like huddle outside. Good morning, everyone. I'm still here. Because it really is. It makes all the difference in the world.
It does. I love that you do it in the cold too. I feel that resistance too, but there's something about stepping out and feeling the nip of the cold air that you learn to appreciate it when you start that practice and lean into the resistance.
Exactly. It's kind of like breath work. Or taking a cold shower. It's invigorating at first, and then it kind of roots you in that connection even more.
Mm. And I think it connects you even more to, as you said, your ancestors and the ancestors of the land, because, they didn't have a choice sometimes to not be in the cold, right? And we get this privilege of being like, yeah, I'm just going to stay inside. No, like if you really want to connect deeper, it's taking that path that feels like uncomfortable. Not that it's painful, it's just uncomfortable. And we most of the time, don't do things that are uncomfortable to us. And so I love that you still do that.
Yes, that's an amazing perspective that I had never thought of before, but that's been a huge theme in my life lately as I was, starting to notice that I was in kind of like a cycle. Like I wasn't feeling like I was growing a ton, and I was doing the things that were comfortable. I had my routines, and I was getting restless and feeling unfulfilled. And I started to notice all the things that I had stories about, like cardio. I had this story. I was like, I'm already a triple air sign. It's ungrounding, blah. But I was like, I feel like this is actually probably going to be really good for me. And I was feeling a little bit down and depressed. And I was like, this is going to be really good for my dopamine and just rebalancing my energy. And like everything in my mind was like, no, we can't do this. No, this is hard. No, this hurts. And like the stories were getting so loud, but I was just pushing through it. And I was like, no, we can. And once I got to the other side of the workout, I was like, this feels amazing. And same with starting to do breath work. I had so much fear and anxiety around doing that. And I've started integrating that more. And just like the more you stretch and expand into those spaces that you really have convinced yourself that you can, they're some of the best things for you. So
it's so insane how our body and our mind protects itself, because it makes me think of how we get into our spiritual practice and we put ourselves in this little box and we almost use spirituality as a way of bypassing our healing. And we don't take that moment to pause and tap in and be like, okay, I know these practices are good, but are they what I need right now in this moment?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And I think it's also really easy to get a little bit disconnected from the practices that you're doing and the why behind them. Like, of course, it's good to meditate, and of course, it's good to do breath work, but like, what's coming up for you during that? Where's the discomfort? Where's the stretch? And how does that affect or relate to your physical life? Because I think of things like energy healing. 'Cause like I do energetic healing work as well. And I was doing and receiving like Reiki sessions, like Reiki after Reiki after Reiki, because I could feel this fear, this anxiety, and like this unresolved energy. But like I was doing all the energy work, but I wasn't actually addressing what I was afraid of. And like I wasn't looking at the pattern in the cycle that I was in and slowing down and breathing through that. So I think you're right. It's so important to not use these beautiful, powerful tools that we do have as a way to bypass the human experience.
Mm.
And I think there's two things that you've said here that I find very true. And one is, you said, using these beautiful tools. I just saw a beautiful red bird outside my window that I had to respect and just say hello for a second. But you said tools, and that's what they are. They are tools. We can heal without them, right? They help magnify, they help us grow, but we don't have to have them. And I think we definitely use them as a crutch. And the other thing is the stories in your head. I'm sure I've heard this before, but I feel like whatever wisdom and magic that you have coming from your voice right now made the story in my head, using that word to describe it, more understandable for me, because I don't know if I've ever actually understood the voices going on in my head as the story that I've created about something. And
Yes.
that's it's powerful to see it in those words, because I mean, like you with cardio, mine would probably be lifting weights. Did not
Mhm.
want to lift weights. Like, no, I'm gonna be too bulky. It's stupid. I hate it. It's whatever. When in reality, it's what I need for my body type. Not like, heavy, like massive bodybuilding weight, but I do need to lift some to increase my body mass to help my body stay healthy. And
Mhm.
I love that you said the story you're telling yourself. I can even hear a story right now that I'm telling myself as I'm like, oh, okay, so that's what that is. Interesting. Because I know it's the voice in my head. I know that. I know how to address it. But
Right.
seeing it as the story, like that's just a game changer, I feel like.
And they
I
turn into like deep-seated beliefs and we don't even realize it.
Yeah. And those dominate our world and what we think we're capable of creating for ourselves. And that limitation can be really, I guess, I don't want to say like, okay, I want to think about this for a second. It creates unnecessary limitations for ourselves that can be really hard to identify because our ego, like that voice in the head, the story, it likes to hide because
Mhm.
that's what it's trying to do, is it's trying to keep us safe and comfortable, because stretching is uncomfortable and growth can be scary. So it can be really hard to see our own stories and identify where we're limiting ourselves. And that's why, community and friends and life will reflect it back to us in perfect timing. And those things are such a gift to our healing experience.
So, Sarah, I'm interested to hear what sparked your journey into your spiritual path.
Hmm, that's a great question. I'd say curiosity is what started it. And
I can see your inner child was like, I want to figure out what this is.
yeah. Yeah. I I first started getting really into astrology because I was so curious about why I am the way that I am. And before my spiritual awakening, before I shifted my path, I was in psychology for a long time. And that is definitely a reflection of this long like always been their curiosity of like, why am I the way that I am? And like, a desire to really understand and know so that I can, I don't know, navigate life better, I guess, and become the best version of myself and heal authentically. And so I started with astrology. Um, and I don't know if you know Natalia Benson, but I was following a lot of her stuff. And then I was offered the opportunity to be in an amazing manifestation program. And I had never heard of anything like that. But it called to me really strongly. And the opportunity itself was very divine. Like it was basically gifted to me. So I was like, because I was going to turn it down because my ego was like, no, like I think we're good. This sounds like a stretch. This sounds really uncomfortable. And I think I intuitively knew that my life was going to change forever. And I wanted to hide from that. But then I was gifted it. So it was like, here you go.
You're doing this.
You're doing this. Congratulations. And honestly, around that, like 2 weeks into the program, I lost my job pretty traumatically. And I was questioning my relationship. My partner and I had been together for almost, I think at that years, we had been together 5 years, and everything felt like the world was ending. But this program was introducing me to things that I never really expanded into before, like the idea that I can create whatever I want to create, and that I can play with life and really just manifest what my heart really wants. Because I started to live life in a way that I thought I needed to in order to be safe and like everybody else. You know, I had found the quote unquote dream partnership. I had found the dream job or the stability, and I was on a track to, applying for PhD programs, and it was also safe and normal. And yet I felt unfulfilled and like there was something missing. And I couldn't figure out for the life of me why. And so being introduced to something that introduced me to the idea of like, you can make money doing anything you want. You can go anywhere and be anyone and create anything that you could possibly dream of. And I was like, what? Really? And like, very nervously kind of like, okay, expanding into that, because I had a lot of stories about myself and what I'm capable of. And honestly, I'm still healing through a lot of those actively. Like, and those, of course, as a lot of ours do, stem from childhood, but it really started there for me. Pretty much like yoga and astrology, and then expanding into manifestation. And then after that, I ended that relationship, and my whole life just exploded into this beautiful, messy, vibrant path that it's been for the past couple of years. And ultimately what brought me to herbalism.
Mm. And what a beautiful path. It's been such an honor to watch you. What has it been 3, 4, how long have we known each other? 3 years?
2 years.
2 years? Yeah, because my son's 3 now. Wow. Okay. Anyways, yes. And I've loved watching you grow and thrive and blossom, and watching your business grow and change. It's been such a beautiful experience just watching you grow.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Mm.
And your story really resonates with me on the feeling of like you were doing it all, quote unquote, had it all, right? That belief. And then you just realize I'm just not fulfilled. Because that's exactly my story in that same way too, of doing that path, following the path, and this is what you're supposed to be doing, but I'm just not happy.
And even on the reverse of that, right? Not only am I not happy, I'm somewhat toxic to those around me because I'm not looking at what who I really am, what I really want to do. And I think that's a big thing that a lot of us don't realize is, if I just keep my head down and then even though I'm not happy and I've recognized I'm not happy, right? And I still keep doing what I'm doing, I'm only affecting myself. And that's not even true. Even at the, lowest level, in some ways, the toxicity that you're committing to yourself does seep out to others around you, because we are a direct result of, the people that we are around.
Absolutely. I did a tapping on that this morning, actually. So I love that you're bringing this up is, like a tapping on being true to yourself and how really, even though we have all these fears around it, being true to ourselves is the best thing that we could possibly do for ourselves and everyone around us, because it unlocks the, I want to say, like, highest timeline for everyone involved. It gives other people permission to do the same thing, even if at first they may not respond to it well, or it may not go over well.
It's triggering. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But ultimately, you setting yourself free will always set others free.
You setting yourself free will always set others free. That is just beautiful. Makes me think of the birdie that I saw outside.
I love that.
Reminding you to return to peace. Absolutely.
Birds have been coming to me a lot lately, and I definitely feel that message.
Feel the spring coming too.
Yes.
So you said it led you to herbalism. Can you talk a bit more about your herbalism practice and like what that looks like for you?
Absolutely. It changes. It ebbs and flows with life, but the thing that I connect to most is drinking the herbs in tea form and utilizing it in tandem with the things that I'm working on healing personally. It helps me create like an added dimension and relationship to what I'm healing through. And it helps me feel connected to it more so. And it brings a certain level of intention about. So, like, for example, when, like, right now I'm working on coming to terms with my ADHD like tendencies and really sitting with the struggle that I've had to stay consistent and stay focused and maintain those daily practices and do the things that I don't like to do. And I've had, the mind stories of like, we weren't built for this. We can't operate this way. Like, we want to be in flow. And it's like lovingly drawing awareness and being like, yes. And there's a reason why structure really supports people. And it's okay that you are struggling to create this for yourself, but it would really serve you to take steps to heal. So right now I'm working with lemon balm in particular and chamomile. So on the new moon, I just made a new tincture that's chamomile and lemon balm together with this beautiful intention of working on this part of myself and healing that part of my brain and body, because lemon balm and chamomile are both very good for the nerve endings, so calming anxiety as well. But lemon balm is a beautiful herb for focusing. And so when I am going to steep it at the next new moon, after it's been a month, I intend to, bottle it up and be taking it daily. And for me, that like physical connection to the thing that I'm healing is like a beautiful reminder and helps me deepen that integration. Because I think, especially something that I'm learning as a triple air sign, which should be like a psychiatric diagnosis, like, to be fully honest, is that like in the spiritual world, there's so many concepts and so much energy in the ethers. It's very in the spiritual, in the mind, and the up here, basically. And physical products, herbs in particular, can really help us anchor those things in to the present, to our bodies, which is honestly kind of the most important part of healing, is that integration piece.
And I love that I always love talking to you about plants and herbalism because I'm also really passionate about it. But I love that when you're manifesting so much, where, saying what we want to manifest or speaking it, we don't have that physical anchor and reminder in the real world. And that's where the herbalism comes in, and making that tea with intention. It just lights me up. And something that popped out to me that I feel like I need to tell you is, what you're working on and what you're healing right now, I feel like, is your relationship with masculine energy. In the spiritual world, we are told to step into our feminine, which is beautiful, but we get to live in flow and balance that masculine and explore what a healthy relationship with masculine energy is, because it's not, we're not really exposed to it, and we get to learn what those practices look like. And the tincture you made sounds perfect for that too, with the lemon balm and what was the other one? Chamomile, yes. And I feel like you're going to grow a really deep connection with that masculine energy inside of yourself.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you. And actually, as you said that, it just pinged me, like, chamomile is actually a masculine herb. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even think about that. And lemon balm being, in my experience, more feminine. Mm-hmm. So
it's that balance.
Already a beautiful balance. Yeah. Amazing. See, like we just know. Like, I remember in that moment, like I think I was planning on making passion flower and lemon balm, but I called in my benevolent, loving ancestors who also worked with herbs, and I asked them to guide my hands, and it went like lemon balm right to the chamomile. I was like, okay,
yep,
we're doing this. And then of course later it starts to anchor in more of an understanding within me. But yeah, our bodies, our spirits know what we need.
And I think that's, yeah. And I speak so true to just when we talk about being magical beings, and then when people start looking into magic for the first time, they get caught up into following these directions or these recipes. And it's like, no, you tap into your intuition and what your body and heart and soul are telling you that you need.
Exactly. Because sometimes it's not going to make sense, but ultimately it's how that herb would love to work with you and to serve you. Because the thing is that herbs are so multidimensional. Like, if you look at things from the more Western perspective of what herb is good for this, like you'll get all of them for every question, it's like physical pain, trauma, like it's all good, like kava root. But like, what is kava root? What is your relationship to kava root? What does kava root want to bring into your life? And the only way that you can know that is by exploring your connection with it. And one of my favorite ways to do that I learned from, herbalists that I immensely respect, is they always just say, like, the classic way to do this since the beginning of time is pop it in your mouth. Just see what it's got to tell you. So I love to, when I have a new herb that I am curious about, I steep it by itself and, drink it very intentionally as a tea. And I notice where in my body I start to feel sensations, what kind of thoughts are coming into my mind. And that's how it shows me what it's here to help me transform and heal through.
And that won't look the same for everyone. Kava root is not going to look the same for me as it does for you. Will there be similarities? Yes, but it may not be exactly the same.
Exactly.
And I love that. I think I'm glad that you mentioned how to do that, because I feel like a lot of us start that path of like, yeah, herbalism sounds so cool. Now what?
Yes.
Use it in your food. Just grab the random spices and just intuitively cook a meal one time. That's a great practice.
It is. Totally. I also love just sitting with one. I mean, it makes me think of when we chatted with Haley about yoga on just being with one asana and sticking with that and like really feeling into that. What is child's pose really wanting from you today? And feeling into that. Well, now we're going to go choose time, or we're going to go choose limit, whatever it is, and steep it and really sit with that and say, what is this wanting from me today? And then journal about it. Like, how can I apply this later on? I don't drink black tea anymore, and I crave and love a London fog, an Earl Grey. And so I created one out of rooibos and red raspberry leaf and lavender petals. And then I put some bergamot oil with it. And so that's like my first time really infusing and figuring out how to make this herbally, an herbal tea, and enjoying it the way I loved it. And it's scary. Let's be real. It's scary diving into that for the first time, only because we've been told, watch the herbs. They can hurt you. You don't know what they're supposed to be used for. Like we've told that so many times. And so
Programming.
Yes, it's definitely just tapping in and say, you know what, I'm going to try it. And if it tastes bad, cool. If it isn't for me, cool. Right. But just taking that first step, once again, tapping into that uncomfortable part of you.
Yeah. And be like expanding on that, also trusting ourselves that our bodies will know if it's not for us. Like my body, if I put something poisonous in my mouth, first of all, I don't think it'll even get that far, because I think everything in my alarm system will go off and be like, do not go near this. And also, if I put something in my body, I'm going to know right away that it doesn't feel good and that it does not want to be there. So, and I think that that's true for everyone, but I also do think like it serves and benefits to begin to cultivate those practices that connect you with your body, so you can understand those signs and communications a little bit more clearly. But when it comes to things like being harmed, I really do think that our bodies carry this strong innate wisdom, and they're constantly trying to communicate with us. So we'll know right away.
I mean, we carry the codes, the information from our ancestors who had to actually taste it to see if it was poisonous.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just have a feeling about, I'm not sure. And that's probably some of your ancestors coming in through being like, yeah, you're right.
You probably shouldn't do that.
But let's look into that one. But I mean, it definitely is like trusting yourself and not second guessing yourself. So I love how you said that.
Well, and you can really lean into it too, just starting with herbs that you know, like lemon balm. We've talked about lemon balm today. That is an amazing herb you can start with if you're looking and getting into herbalism. It's gentle, it's kind, and the taste is good. It's just a little lemony, but not acidic, which is awesome.
Exactly. It's so gentle. I'm pretty sure I learned about lemon balm from you, because you were such a beautiful part of the beginning of my herbal journey as well. In your shares about each one, I think you did like an herb of the month. And I remember specifically St. John's wort. And ever since then, St. John's wort has been such a powerful ally for me. I think the first tincture I ever made was St. John's wort and rose for heart healing and self-confidence. And it like, oh, I'm getting chills now just remembering it. Like, I think I still have a little bit more, but I remember I charged it with amethyst and made it under a full moon, because at that point I didn't know that it's better to make it in the new moon, but it was so special to me. And learning that from you was so powerful. And you were such a good teacher in that you made it so accessible, and you connected the aspect of herbalism that I arguably love the most, which is the folklore and the storytelling behind it. And so I am so grateful to you for really continuing to expand and open me up to this path.
Oh my goodness, you're making my heart ache. I need to start doing that again. I miss teaching and talking about the different herbs and plants, and becoming a mom of two. I feel like I've kind of lost touch with it a little bit, but I can feel my inner child and inner herbalist coming out saying, this is your sign to get back in. We miss you.
Yes. I love that.
And I think it's very important too that you mentioned you quote unquote made a mistake by doing it under the full moon, quote unquote, I say, because a lot of us once again have that fear of, I'm going to mess up.
Right.
And it's just doing it.
Yeah.
And I think also choosing stuff without having to have an intention behind it. Like it, I think in the way I mean it being, it doesn't have to have a purpose, in the sense of, well, I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't know, what the purpose of it for is, it versus I'm just going to be with it. I'm just going to try it and do it. It doesn't always have to have an end goal. But thank you for the little nugget of, hey, new moon magic weavers.
Exactly. And two things in that. First being like, even as I said that, I'm thinking, maybe according to certain beliefs and structures, new moon is better because of the energetics around it to create medicine. But maybe a full moon tincture is what I needed at that time. Because
I feel that.
Because that's when the idea came to me. That's when everything lined up perfectly for me to create it. That's when I felt really connected to it. So ultimately, like, I can just choose to trust that it was perfectly in perfect timing and created just the way that it needed to be. And the other thing about not necessarily needing a reason, yes, this is such a part of healing and working with the inner child too, is doing things that like they don't have a purpose, like, but we just do them because they're fun and we like to play. And that is so healing within itself. And ultimately kind of how I started my business, because when I first started my herbal path, pretty shortly after, I kept feeling this like desire to make a bath soak. And my ego comes in and she's just like, you don't know anything about it. You don't know what herbs to use. Like, this is dumb. What's the point? You're just going to take a bath and then it's over. Like, what's the point? Like, she was so loud about it, which is like, I guess I get to take that as a sign that like the louder the ego is, the more life-changing the thing you're about to step into is. So, but it just kept going and going. I was talking to a friend about it. I was like, I just don't know why. Like, I just keep feeling the need to make this back. She's just like, Sarah, just make the fucking soak. I hope it's okay to curse on your podcast.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. But so I finally did it. And I went to the store and I got salt, and like the whole time, like my ego was just like, nah. I was like, I'm going to do it anyway. Just whatever. And I got salt and apricot oil and hibiscus and lavender. And I got home and like ego stories, like I kept avoiding it. I was like, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do it right. Do I charge it with a crystal? I don't know how to do this. So finally one day I was just like, enough. I like moved my work stuff aside, like pushed aside my laptop, cleared a space, and just like grabbed a crystal and a kitchen bowl and put some salt in it. And I just did the thing. And that was my first bath soak. And I don't even know that bath was the most amazing bath of my life, but I did the thing. And a couple weeks later, I was meeting a brand new community of people, of women that I was connecting with. And we had this opportunity, like the first one I had maybe in my life, to exchange like healing services. So I was gifted a beautiful massage, and my friend who was training me in some of my herbal stuff was like, you can make bath soaks. And I was like, okay. And I made, just intuitively, without quote unquote knowing what I was doing, I was just grabbing herbs that I felt called to for this one woman who I had met that day. And 45 minutes later, she comes out of the bath in tears. She was like, I have never felt so held in my life. I've never felt this powerful of a healing in my womb, because that's what, the intention of hers was around. And I didn't know what I was doing, but like my soul, my spirit did, my intuition did, my body did. And ultimately it led me to starting the first aspect of my business, which was my Etsy shop and Sunlight Speaks, and the rest is history. But you just don't know until you allow yourself to play without reason.
I can speak to your bath soaks. They're amazing.
Thank you, my love.
Would you say, how do you go about getting your herbs? I guess is my question. Do you have a garden? And for those that don't have gardens, I think that's another way that we get held up is I don't have all these herbs in my yard to go grab. Where should I get them from? How do I even know? Like that kind of thing. So do you have a garden that has them? And if there's something you're wanting, but you don't obviously are growing it, where do you go? How do you find what you're needing?
Absolutely. So I do not have a garden, and it is one of my greatest desires. I am working through an Aquarius moon chapter where I've been kind of like bouncing around and floating from place to place. And that's actually one of my soul's lessons, I feel, is learning to find the balance between this desire to be free and nomadic and a little wild child, and cultivate the stability and structure and home that I would also really love for myself. So that's actually a huge part of what I'm currently healing through, is balancing those desires and finding a way that it works for me. But as I manifest this beautiful garden space that I know is inevitable and already on its way, what I do is I've been very fortunate in that since my herbal path began, I've been so supported by the universe that wherever I've moved, I've manifested like a beautiful, amazing local apothecary, where they grow their own herbs or they source them from places that I love and trust. But there's also some great Etsy shops. Like there's one called Reverie Farms. I guess I'll give them a free shout out.
Hashtag not sponsored.
Hashtag not sponsored, but on Etsy, and you can feel the vibration of them. Like they're organically grown. They're harvested with love, and I believe it's like a farm in Idaho, and I can just feel the energy behind them, and I trust these herbs like more than anything, and the quality of them is really incredible. And I'm happy to share, with anybody who listens to this podcast. Feel free to reach out to me, or I'm happy to send them over to you guys as well, of like a couple places online where you can source from, because it is so important to me to source from places that are, first of all, organic, and also like sacred is the best way that I can use to describe it. Like I don't want like a mill of like quality of herbs. You know what I mean? I want to feel the as connected to the pure energy of them as possible. And I find that little farms like that, or little shops and apothecaries, or people that grow them in their yard, like that's when you can really feel that love. And are there times where I buy them from Sprouts? You bet your sweet butt there are, because I'm just like another human being who is finding balance and time to do all the things. But yeah, I do love to source from places like that. And I've also been so fortunate in that I have connections to people with gardens, and I live in California now. So rosemary grows just like in random neighborhoods, and, I'll ask Rosemary if I can harvest her, and then I've got some rosemary and I'll dry it out or make an oil with it. So yeah.
I would say another really great place is like local farmers markets, where you can get to know some of the local farmers and actually see and touch the herbs before you take them. And you can even ask them how they take care of their herbs, and, talk to them about their farm. They love talking about that kind of thing. That's why they go to the farmers market. That's why they have a farm, and it will spark and reignite that beauty in farming and growing your own things, even if you can't yourself.
Yes, absolutely. I love that.
And what would you say is your kind of go-to for working with your inner child, like your medicine, or if you don't have a go-to, maybe a method of, if it's, tinctures that you tend to love more, or if it's just sitting with your tea?
That's a great question. For inner child, it's very much tea, because inner child work, I feel like for so many of us, it comes back to safety, feeling safe in what you're experiencing, feeling safe in the shadows that you're confronting and integrating, and feeling safe to be who you truly are. And having that tea is like, it's like giving myself that warm hug that I need. I love to physically wrap my arms around myself all the time, but it's like giving that warmth and that beautiful herb with intention to your body, to your child, to wrap her in that warm blanket of your love and say, hey, it's okay. I've got you. I've got you. Even if you don't feel like you have the answers or know how to show up for her or him or them all the time, just knowing like I'm still here and I'm doing my best and I love you and I see you. And to answer the second part of your question, the first herb that I will always come back to for inner child is rose, which is so beautiful for me because it speaks into what you were saying earlier, Alyssa, of like how what people think to work with a certain herb for isn't always the medicine that it is for you, or it can be, but it's, it shows up in different ways in different parts of your life. Because people, when you think rose, you think abundance, you think love, you think
romance.
Romance, exactly. And inner child healing is absolutely love. But you know what I mean, is the kind of romantic love. But for me, it really came in for inner child and trauma healing. And I really resonated with rose as being for deep compassion and a love that transforms those traumatized spaces within you. And I've actually had offerings surround this before. I've done a sacred rose ceremony where we did a session and a deep guided healing meditation around using the energy of rose to heal from old trauma. And one thing when I was doing my Bloom Inner Child coaching program that I had my clients do is that when we connected to a challenging emotion, or when we were connecting with our inner child and we were witnessing this part of ourselves that hurt, breathing into it and visualizing rose petals wrapping themselves around that place in your body where you're experiencing that pain or that discomfort. And I find it is just one of the most powerful, transcendent experiences to work with her in that way. And yeah, I'm feeling it even as I'm speaking. It's the inner child herb I'll always come home to.
I literally envisioned as you were speaking our inner children taking rose paste and like drawing butterflies on our face and being silly with it.
I love that so much. Our inner children love to play together.
Yes. I feel like every time we talk, I always visualize our inner children like having a tea party or painting each other's face or just running out and frolicking.
Exactly. I love it so much.
Made me think of a huge rose windstorm, almost of like a hurricane of rose petals. Circling the body and that kind of thing. I have a rose powder from Anima Mundi that I love, and I've actually put some honey with it and put it as like a face mask. And yes,
goddess work right there.
Mm-hmm.
I might try that when I start bleeding again, doing that with my blood, I think.
Yeah.
Like you said, goddess work, and I'm like, Yes. But I think rose is also one of those that's safe to connect with, in the sense of like safe being, fearful around where do I start and that kind of thing. And rose is just one of those that's very fun, and it can start off, at least in my experience, very light, but can also take you like super deep.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, go ahead.
No, you're good.
And ultimately, what's coming to mind is like always trusting that we're guided to the herb that our heart and spirit really needs or would love. So if you're beginning your herbal path and like for some reason you just keep seeing like ashwagandha everywhere or lemon balm everywhere you go, or like you see a product and you're like, oh, it's got lemon balm in it. Yep. Like those synchronicities will guide you to really what your body needs. And tea is a really, in my experience, gentle and safe way to start like that taste again, to start seeing how your body feels and responds to it. And just even like if you're working with a root, taking like the quarter teaspoon, like the tiniest amount, steeping it in water, just see how it feels. Just like baby steps. And yeah.
What would you say are some of your non-negotiables for yourself? I know you said the first one being stepping outside and just greeting the day, greeting the world. I think that's beautiful. What is something else that you would do that if you don't, you kind of feel it in your body? You feel like maybe not so much yourself.
Yoga. Absolutely yoga. And it's becoming more like, well, meditation, of course, too, but it's becoming breath work as well. And like EFT tapping or supportive tools. But when I'm like thinking about my whole morning routine now, but when it comes down to it, movement and yoga, because what I'm learning about the way my unique energy works. So for example, like I am a triple air sign with a lot of water in my chart. So I'm a deep feeler and I was born to do that. My North Node is in Scorpio. I am an alchemist through emotion and the flow of energy through and out of my body. But my tendencies have been to hold on to emotion and to get really in my head. So movement helps me anchor into the present moment and get back into my body and out of the spinning thoughts, out of the head. And it also helps my body move that energy through and out so that I'm not holding on to it and it's not like staying in the recesses of my body as trapped trauma. And I think it's especially important for empaths and intuitives because we can be receiving so much on a daily basis from our interactions, from the places that we go. And if we're not like cleansing it out through our bodies and really letting it go, it can get stuck, it can get stagnant and have us not feeling like our true selves. And so for me personally, movement has been the medicine.
I feel that deeply.
And what would you say for someone who, as you just said, gets stuck and has us feeling not like our true selves? What would you say for someone who's like, what does my even true self feel like? How do I even figure that out? Because I feel so just bombarded and just unable to, to get there. What would you say for them?
That's a great question. And it's honestly, I think one that we're going to be constantly evolving with is going to be constantly unfolding, because even as we walk this path and begin to know ourselves, I feel like there's always going to be a call to know ourselves deeper and even more. And as we unravel and raise our consciousness, we're constantly letting go of the things that we thought we wanted or needed or beliefs that we held about ourselves. So it can be really challenging to be like, what is actually true for me and what is just conditioning or what's just life the way that I thought it was. And for that, I say nature, number one, and time and space to heal. So cultivating that space for you in a way that is sustainable for you. So I'd say, for example, mothers, I know you're both mothers. or somebody with a really busy work schedule, if all you can give to yourself is 5 minutes at the end of the day, rubbing your feet with some rose oil or coconut oil or something like that, then that is your sacred time. And giving that to yourself consistently, you will inevitably begin to know yourself deeper, because that time will become even more fruitful and fulfilling and connected, because it's yours and it's sacred. And nature definitely is the other part of it, as I am learning about myself as a psychic and intuitive who is learning about her power and how her power works. I hadn't really realized that I was picking up so much energy of people around me, in the form of feeling it in my physical body. And to be quite honest, like thoughts that are not mine. And I didn't like, I feel like so many of us are psychic and telepathic and don't know it. And it started, pinging for me the past couple months of like, I would be thinking these thoughts and I'd start to notice like, this is weird. Like, why am I thinking about this all of a sudden? And then the person across the room will start talking about it. And I'm like, oh,
There it is.
there it is. And it's kind of jarring emotionally when you realize like this whole time I thought this was all me. And that may very well not be the case. And that opens another level and dimension of healing and learning yourself, which is where my path is taking me right now. But in that, nature is so healing because it's like the purest vibration of just pure peace and love that we can get to, where we can actually be alone with our thoughts, actually be and trust that what we're connecting to and experiencing is our divine selves and our true selves. And when we feel safe to relax into that space, when we feel at peace, that's when our true selves can really unfold before our own eyes, in the form of the things that we're being drawn to. Because I don't always think like, if you sit down with yourself and take that time and space, like you're not going to know in a day, like, oh, this is my true self. Got it. Okay.
Check mark.
Yeah, right. That's what I was expecting. Did not happen that way. And so I'm learning that the guidance, the knowing of ourselves is more of an organic unfolding into and allowing into our lives. And the more time and space we take for ourselves consistently. So I wouldn't even say it's like more time. It's just like the more consistent you are in being in devotion to your divine, your truth, your true heart, the more it's inevitably just going to pour itself into your reality. And that's when miracles happen.
So I think all of that, with one action item for our magic weaver that's listening right now, would be to connect with nature every day this week and notice the shifts. That could be putting your feet outside directly on the ground. That could be opening up your window for 5 minutes and just breathing in the fresh air. That could look like sitting in the sunlight and just soaking it up, but really taking that moment, 3 to 5 minutes to just connect and be.
Yeah, absolutely. Highly recommend it.
I can't wait to do that in my practice. Just stepping outside. I mean, I already do in some ways, but I think being intentional about it versus I'm just going to go outside. I think doing my morning routine and get my cup of warm water and just being out there and being like breathing in. I love that.
Yeah, that's definitely a huge part of it, because I think it can be really easy to like go spend time in nature, but then spend that time in nature, like spinning in your head and like still thinking about work and still thinking about all the things you will have to do or that you're anxious about. And, it like, not to say that that's an immediate thing that will go away. It's just bringing the awareness to that and doing your best to bring yourself back to, what does the wind feel like right now? What does the grass feel like against my toes? Can I give myself peace in this moment?
This concludes another episode of our Weaving Magick podcast.
We release one episode a week, so be sure to subscribe to catch the latest episode as soon as it releases. You can find us on Instagram at Weaving Magick Podcast. That's Weaving Magick, Magick Podcast.
We would also love it if you could leave us a review. If you do, make sure to email us your review so we can send you a thank you gift. Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to find a way to weave magic into your daily life.